Hi, this is Cecily with ReliCheck. Really glad you're here. Today we're doing something a little different. And if you come from the numbers side of research like I do, I think you're going to like where this goes. We're going to take one real study, run it all the way through Studio, our Mac app for mixed methods, and answer a question that neither the numbers alone nor the interviews alone could answer on their own. I'll do every step in front of you and I'll explain each one as it comes up so you leave knowing how to do it yourself. Let's get into it. There's a lot to cover, so I've broken it into 3 parts. In this first part, we set the study up and get the data ready. In part 2, we analyze both strands, the numbers and the words. And in part 3, we bring them together and build the report. By the end, you'll have watched a full convergent mixed method study, start to finish, and you'll know how to run one yourself. Let me make this real because mixed methods only matters once it is attached to something you actually want to know. Picture the same diabetes coaching program running at 2 clinics. Call them Northside and Lakeview. Same program, same coaches, same 12-week plan. At both clinics, we measured how confident patients felt managing their condition, how many coaching sessions they showed up for, whether their A1C improved at follow-up, and whether they finished the program. And we asked every patient one open question. What most helped or got in the way of managing your health? Then the results come in, and there's a puzzle. Northside patients gained more confidence and improved more often. Lakeview patients did the work, they showed up, but their clinical numbers stayed flatter. And here's the trap every one of us can fall into. You look at those flatter Lakeview numbers and a quiet voice says, maybe those patients just didn't try as hard. That is exactly the kind of conclusion that can hurt real people. And it is exactly the kind of conclusion mixed methods is built to test instead of assume. Before I touch a button, let me give you the idea because the name sounds heavier than the thing. Mixed methods just means you use 2 kinds of evidence together. Numbers, the quantitative strand, the ratings and rates and test statistics. And words, the qualitative strand, what people actually said in their own voice. The design we're using is called Convergent. That word carries the whole logic. You collect both strands, you analyze each one on its own terms, and then you bring them together to see one of 3 things. Sometimes the numbers and the words agree, and that agreement makes your findings stronger. Sometimes the words explain a number you couldn't make sense of on its own, and sometimes they complicate each other, and that tension is worth reporting, not hiding. Now, if you're a quantitative researcher, here's the part I want you to hear. You do not have to abandon rigor to do this. You bring it with you. Studio walks the qualitative side with the same discipline you already trust on the number side. Same care applied to words. Let me show you. Let's set it up. On the start screen, Studio provide us with various options for conducting our study. First, you can create and run your study from the Studio desktop app. In the Field Studio, you can create your study, develop your assessment instrument, conduct the study, and all the data flows seamlessly into the analysis section of the Studio. Or we can open up a project we have been working on. Next, let's say we were working on a project using the Studio web app on ReliCheck or the Field Studio iPad app, or working with a research partner who either has Studio on their Mac, web, or the iPad app. We can import that data into Studio. Next is the setting. Here, you can save your setting, which would allow you to use Apple Intelligence or other AI tools, provided you had an API key. Given that this is a native Apple product, Apple Intelligence is included at no cost. However, what is important to note is that all ReliCheck products are human first and AI optional. None of the Apple Intelligence features on our apps analyze data. The feature is designed to provide an interpretation of the findings if you choose to use it. For this exercise, we are importing in our data. Now the data. I upload a CSV. In the overview, you can see a snapshot of your data. Here, our data consists of 50 patients, one row each, 13 columns, and 50 open-ended responses. Here, I title the study Northside versus Lakeview Diabetes Coaching, then give it a description. Next, I tell the app what kind of study this is. I choose Convergent. That one choice matters because it shapes every step that follows. It tells Studio to treat the numbers and the words as equal partners and to merge them at the end. And this next screen, the data map, is where a quantitative researcher will feel right at home because it is exactly the tell the software what your variables are step you already do. Studio takes a first guess the moment you import, and then it asks you to confirm. That confirm step is the important part, and I want to show you two places where I corrected its guess because you will hit these too. First, clinic. I set that as my grouping variable. The thing that splits Northside from Lakeview, that is the comparison running through the whole study. Second, my 5 confidence items, EF1 through F5. Those aren't 5 separate questions. To me, they are 5 items measuring one thing, self-efficacy. So I group them under a single construct, and I point the app at my already average self-efficacy column as the scale score I'll actually analyze. And here's the correction that matters most. The app guessed that A1C improved and completed were rating scale items because they hold numbers. But they aren't ratings. They're yes or no outcomes. 1 means improved, 0 means not. So I switch both to binary. If I'd left that wrong, the wrong test would light up later. 2 minutes of care here saves you from running the wrong analysis down the line. Before we continue, we have to confirm our data map. This tells the software how to read and analyze our data. Before I run any analysis, I run data quality. This is the boring step that saves you real embarrassment later. Studio scans every column and reports back, and I want to walk through what it caught. First, it checks for duplicate rows and duplicate IDs, and we're clean there. Then it looks at straight lining on the Likert items, and it comes back at 2%. Straight lining is when someone gives the exact same answer to every item in a battery, say a 5 on all 5 self-efficacy items. That can be a sign of someone clicking straight down the column without really reading, instead of a real considered opinion. 2% on 50 patients is about 1 person, and low is exactly what you want. It means almost everyone varied their answers the way people do when they actually think about each item. If this came back at 10% or more, I'd slow down and look closer before trusting the scale. And to be fair, a little straight lining is normal. Someone who honestly feels the same confidence on every item looks the same as a careless responder on this one number. So 2% is reassuring, not something to act on. Next, it flags the numeric outliers, and this one says review. Studio is running Tukey's check on the continuous numbers. It finds the middle half of a variable from the 25th to the 75th percentile and draws a fence a step and a half beyond it on each side. Anything past that fence gets flagged as sitting unusually far from the pack. Here we've got 2, 1 in self-efficacy and 1 in sessions attended. So 1 patient's confidence score lands at the far tail, and 1 patient's visit count is well outside the usual spread. Review is a soft flag, not a failure. It's the app saying, glance at these, not these are wrong. In our study, both are real values, so we keep them. You'd only change something if a flagged number turned out to be a typo or impossible. And here's the part I really like. The check leaves the Likert items out on purpose, and it tells you why. On a 1 to 7 scale, a person answering 1 or 7 is making a valid choice at the end of the scale, not producing an outlier. So the outlier test runs only on the true continuous numbers, the average self-efficacy score, and the session count, and stays away from the rating items where an extreme answer is a real answer. Then 3 more checks come back clean, one after another. Invalid numeric values, a pass. So Every number in the file is one it's actually allowed to be. Nothing out of range, no straight text where a rating should be. Low effort open ends, also a pass, which is Studio reading what your patients actually wrote and confirming these are real answers, not blanks, not a one-word fine, not a row of gibberish, an item level missingness, a pass too. So no single question got skipped so often you'd have to set it aside. Put it all together, and you're looking at a data set that's complete, honest, and ready to work with before you've run a single test. And that's our setup. We started with a real question about a diabetes coaching program running at 2 clinics, Northside and Lakeview. We mapped every variable, corrected the ones the app guessed wrong, and ran a data quality check that came back clean. So now we have a study that's clearly defined and data we can actually trust. That's the foundation everything else stands on. In part 2, we roll up our sleeves and analyze. First the numbers, the confidence scores, and the clinical outcomes, then the words, what patients told us in their own voice. I'll see you there.